Have you ever met someone who felt more at home in a country they weren't even born in? This is the story of a layer. You won't find his name in history books, but once, a long time ago, he looked up and said, "The reason I'm still alive is because of the Filipino people." That might sound strange, especially coming from a boy born far away whose early life was shaped by war and pain. But sometimes the truth doesn't follow logic. Elior was born during World War II, one of the darkest times in human history. His father was a scholar, and his mother was a violinist. They were both Jews living in Nazi Germany, and both disappeared during the Holocaust. Elior survived because kind people risked their lives to hide him, from neighbors to members of the resistance. They kept him safe in barns, cellars, and anywhere soldiers couldn't find him. He was passed quietly from one person to another, like a precious secret, barely surviving through the war. By the end of it, Alair was just another orphan with no family, no home, and no papers. But then, a kind nurse who had helped during the war made a plan. She had heard of a country far away, a place that once opened its doors to Jewish refugees when the rest of the world turned them away. That place was the Philippines. Back in 1939, President Manuel Quezon had chosen to welcome Jewish refugees fleeing from Nazi Germany. Even when other countries said no, the Philippines said yes. Elior arrived years after the war, when he was 8 years old. He was tired, alone, and scared. He had no luggage, didn't speak the language, and was still holding on to a lot of pain. Everything felt strange. The heat, the smell of the streets, the unfamiliar words. Then a kind woman appeared. She wore a simple cotton dress, had brown skin and wrinkles, and a warm smile. She bent down, touched his head gently, and gave him a bowl of hot rice porridge. She softly said, "Anak," child. He didn't know what the word meant, but he felt its meaning. That was when things began to change. A foster family near Quezon City took him in. Their home was simple: bamboo walls, a tin roof, and a wooden floor that creaked under their feet. His foster father drove a jeepney. His foster mother, or nanay, sold vegetables in the market. They weren't wealthy, but they gave him love and care. His real name was hard for people to pronounce, so kids in the neighborhood called him Leto. Soon, this pale boy from far away was running barefoot with the other children, climbing trees, eating with his hands, and learning to laugh in a new language. Every evening, the family would sit together as the father played old songs on a worn-out guitar. Before meals, they prayed in quiet Tagalog, thankful for even simple food like rice and dried fish. In their home, there was an important rule: no one eats until everyone is served, especially the child. At first, Leto didn't understand this kindness. In Europe, he had survived by staying silent, hiding, and trusting no one. But in the Philippines, strangers gave him food on the street. People he didn't know called him anak. Even those with very little made space for him. Here, he was never treated like a stranger. Everyone was called kapwa, a shared soul, a fellow human being. Years later, someone asked Leto what the Philippines gave him. He answered in fluent Tagalog, "I lost my family in Germany, but I found my spirit here." He went to school with the local children. At first, it was hard. He didn't understand much. Sometimes people laughed, and it made him feel unsure. But the laughter wasn't mean. Filipinos were curious, not cruel. His classmates asked honest questions. Why did he speak slowly? Why didn't he know their games? Why did his nose look different? One afternoon under a shady mango tree behind the school, a girl named Alona sat next to Leto. She handed him a comic book, cheap, colorful, full of wild, bright heroes. "Para sa'yo," she said shyly. "For you." It was the first time someone gave him something for no reason at all. Inside the comic, the hero wasn't big or strong. He was small, awkward, but brave. Alona sat beside him and pointed at each word, sounding them out slowly. That was the day Leto started learning Tagalog. He didn't speak it perfectly, not even fluently, but he tried, and that changed everything. He began playing with the other kids, even when he didn't fully understand the games. He joined school plays and said his lines with a heavy accent, but with all his heart. He even learned to dance tinikling, even if his ankles often got bruised. But he smiled anyway. Still, some nights were hard. He would lie awake, heart pounding at the sound of thunder or fireworks. The memories from the war, darkness, hiding, fear, they didn't go away, but something stronger was growing, belonging. One evening after dinner, he asked his nanay, "Do you think my real mother would have liked it here?" She looked at him gently and said, "Anak, she would have loved this place because it gave her son back his smile." That moment changed him. Leto finally understood. Home isn't where you're born, it's where your heart can heal. But life still had lessons to teach him. One year, a strong typhoon hit their village. The wind roared. The rain crashed on the rooftops. Dirty water rose all around their house. Back in Europe, storms meant fear, screaming, and hiding. But here it was different. Leto watched his foster father laugh as he tied a rope to a tree and used it to swing kids over the flood like a ride. Mothers passed around warm food wrapped in banana leaves. Someone turned on a radio and played Tagalog love songs. People danced in the rain. Leto couldn't believe it. Why were they smiling in the middle of a disaster? That night, soaked and cold, they huddled on mats under a single candle. His nanay handed him a slice of cassava cake and said softly, "Even if the world is flooded, Anak, there is still blessing." Those words stayed with him. That night, for the first time in years, Leto slept peacefully, not in fear. Not long after, he was walking home from the market carrying vegetables for nanay. He saw an old man sitting weakly by the road. Just then, a jeepney stopped. The driver, dirty, tired, and clearly poor, got out, gave the old man a cup of warm pao, opened the straw, stirred it, and gently placed it in his hands. He didn't say anything. No one watched. No photos. Just quiet kindness. Leto froze. That driver didn't have much, but gave anyway. He remembered something his real mother once told him. Kindness matters most when it's hard to give. And in the Philippines, kindness wasn't rare. It was normal. That night, lying on his woven mat under a mosquito net, Leto whispered one word into the darkness. Salamat. Thank you. He didn't know exactly who he was thanking. God, the country, or the people who loved him. But something inside him had changed. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was living. Time passed. Leto finished elementary school. He now spoke Tagalog well, sometimes even scolding his playmates like a true local. He performed in school plays, danced in fiestas, and ran barefoot through the rice fields. But the memories of Germany never completely left. Loud noises, sirens, fireworks, metal clanging, still made him flinch, but he learned to carry the past without letting it crush him. One day his foster father gave him a surprise, a small guitar made of narrow wood. "So you can play like me," he said with a smile. Leto practiced every night, his fingers turning rough as he learned to play Kundiman songs. The first time he played Bayan Ko from start to finish, his nanay quietly cried in the corner. That's when Leto realized music isn't just sound, it's memory, it's identity, it's home. He started speaking at school events. He didn't try to make his story sound dramatic. He just told the truth. "I was once a boy who couldn't speak your language," he would say, "but this country taught me how to speak again, not just with words, but with heart." By the time he turned 18, Leto no longer hesitated when someone called him Filipino. He was a boy raised by Filipino love, and proud of it. Schools began inviting him to speak. Standing in front of students, he would say, "I came from a world where kindness had died, but here it's alive in every home, in every smile." When he died, they buried him beside his nanay and tatay. On his gravestone, written in both Hebrew and Tagalog, were just 3 words, Busong, Filipino. Heart people didn't remember all the details of his story. They remembered how he gave food to strangers, how he sang during storms, how he made people feel seen. To the students who heard him speak, he wasn't just a war orphan. He was proof that you don't have to be born Filipino to live like one. So the next time someone asks you what it means to be part of this country, don't talk about power or wealth. Tell them about the boy who arrived with nothing and left behind everything. Because in a world often divided by fear and borders, the Philippines opened its arms and gave a broken boy his life back. And that is something to be proud of.